Hi, I'm glad you're here. I want to do 4 things today. I want to tell you about 5 of my beliefs about leadership and coaching. I want to tell you about 7 challenges that extraordinary top performers face. I want to describe 5 distinctions that will take them out of those challenges. And then I want to tell you what I'm doing about that. So stay with me. It's going to be an interesting conversation. 5 beliefs. Belief number 1. Coaching is one of the most underrated high-level leadership skills on the planet. Number 2, all leaders are great coaches. Number 3, great coaching is intuitive, but truly great coaches never stop training their intuition. Number 4, being one of the world's best coaches is one thing, but being surrounded by them is another. And number 5, leadership is lonely, and it doesn't need to be that way. These are the beliefs that have informed me, that have shifted my world over the last few years as I've grown as a coach and beyond that as a leader. And having created a community and led a community of extraordinary top performers over the last 4 years, I want to share with, and having coached extraordinary top performers for over 12 years now, I want to share with you 7 challenges that top performers face. Number 1 is the mastery challenge. In this world of mastery of what you do, it would seem easy, right? To what we all crave, let's be honest, what we all crave is the rule book of how to do what's needed to be done to get to the next level of extraordinary success. And yet if it worked that way, we could just all read Richard Branson's biography, the book about Elon Musk, and follow their steps, and we'd be masters too. You see, the trouble with mastery is it's so much more about being than doing. And nobody can teach you being, because it comes from the inside out. The mastery challenge, number 1. Number 2 is the momentum challenge. Momentum is everything in a business. And when you're starting, you feel inertia. It's like pushing a friend's car that's not working. You shove and you push, and slowly you get some traction, and the wheels begin to turn, and you feel momentum. It begins to move, the engine kicks in, and it begins to roll, and you have momentum. Momentum is everything in a business, and yet it's not constant. It can go up and down over time. You can lose momentum. How do you keep momentum is the challenge. How do you keep momentum with the ebbs and flows of life and of business? Number 3 is the accountability challenge. You may have heard me say before, I'm not an accountability coach. You want accountability, I'm not the guy for you. But what I do believe in is when you put together a community of extraordinary people, we hold ourselves accountable. You spend time with an extraordinary high-level coach, you hold yourself accountable to what you want to create. You don't rely on them to do it for you. Number 4 is the essentialism challenge. In this world of shiny objects and the next newest best thing in technology, less but better wins every time. Number 5, the energy challenge. I'm an expert on time management. I have studied every book and process under the sun, from David Allen's Getting Things Done to every latest app there was on time management. Until I read a book years ago called The Power of Full Engagement by Tony Schwartz and David Lohr, I think it is. It's a book about how to manage your energy, not your time. And one of the things I do with almost all of my clients and my groups is I take them on an energy audit to look at what energizes them and what's draining them of energy, what's sucking the life out of them, literally. Because as entrepreneurs and as coaches, we're particularly good at helping others build up their energy, and we forget about ourselves. So we end up burnt out. My hand's raised, your hand raised. I know this one too well, the energy challenge. Number 6 is the honesty challenge. The problem with success is the more successful you become, the more you become surrounded with people who tell you what they think you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. And the other challenge with success is the more successful that you become, it becomes harder to be really honest with the people around you. So the honesty challenge is that ability to speak your truth and have a place that's safe enough for you to speak your truth. And then there's the exponential challenge. The exponential challenge is in a world where most people are trying to get 10% better than they were the day before, the week before, the year before. If you're aiming at 10 times better, you're playing an exponential game. It's a game that looks impossible. As Sam Altman said, the founder of Y Combinator, the problem with being on an exponential curve is if you look behind yourself, it looks flat. It looks like you haven't achieved anything. If you look in front of you, it looks vertical. It looks like you can't achieve anything. The exponential curve is an amazing place to play. So I told you my beliefs around leadership and coaching. I talked about the 7 challenges that extraordinary top performers face that I see. Here are the distinctions that have a real shift around those challenges. So the mastery challenge, everything shifts when you play the game of being beyond the game of doing. Now, you can't stop the game of doing. You've got to learn how to master all sorts of challenges and new ways of doing things to get to the next level. But it always starts from who you're being and where you're coming from. And most people don't teach that. Most people aren't willing to look inside. They're looking outside for the next book, the next program, the next video that will teach them what to do. If only I knew what to do, instead of who to be. Being versus doing is a distinction that shifts everything around the mastery challenge. The momentum challenge combines with the exponential challenge. And there's a distinction I call tension versus intention. In a world where people are focused on intention, like what do I want to create? What do I want to do? Here's what I'm aiming for. Your ability to be in tension, to hold yourself fully present when life feels overwhelming, to be fully present with a client when they're in the midst of explaining a challenge to you, or how you're challenging them is making them feel at their very edge, or how your playing is making you feel at your very edge. That ability to be in tension beats intention every time. And what I do with my clients is I expand their range, their ability to be in tension. When you can play that game, momentum begins to occur. And you can't help but play an exponential game when you're willing to be at the very edge or just beyond your comfort zone. The accountability challenge is solved with this distinction of peer power versus peer pressure. Like I said, accountability doesn't excite me, but self-accountability, because you're in a community of extraordinary people who are playing a big game that challenge you just to, when you're up to something impossible and you see other people doing things that look even more impossible, it suddenly breaks down the barriers of what impossible looks like. And peer power raises you. A rising tide raises all boats, as they say. Peer power versus peer pressure. The essentialism challenge is solved with less versus more. The distinction of less versus more, or less but better. How can you learn to filter out all those shiny objects? Filter out FOMO, fear of missing out, to do the things that really count. The energy challenge, I've already said, is a distinction of energy versus time. In a world where everyone is looking at how do I manage my time, when you become the person who is managing your energy, and when you become the person who week after week lets go of the people, the places, the habits, and the thoughts that drain you of energy, and fill your world with people, places, habits, and thoughts that energize you, your world changes. The honesty challenge, just like the accountability challenge, is solved with the distinction of peer power versus peer pressure. When you're in a community of people who play a game of hide nothing, hold nothing back, when you're willing to be as vulnerable as you dare in a community of people who you trust and hold you safe, you solve the challenge of being surrounded by people only saying what they think you want to hear, or you holding back? Look, let's be honest. Honesty, it's not appropriate for me to always share with anyone from my board of directors to my clients to my wife and kids what's really going on for me. Even to my team, I want to hold some stuff back because I'm there to protect them and support them. But then who's there to listen to me? And I've already said the exponential challenge is when you play this game of 10x versus 10%. In a world where most people are aiming at 10x improvements, when you aim at 10% improvements, when you aim at 10x, 10 times improvements, when you play this game of being willing to be in tension, your world transforms. Those 5 beliefs, those 7 challenges, and the 5 distinctions that solve them are massive. You put them into practice, your world will transform. Your clients will play at a higher level. You as a leader will show up and your team will show up at a higher level. Here's what I'm doing about it. I was talking to a friend the other day who has a $30 million business. And I said, look, I'm not like you. I'm not a natural entrepreneur. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur when I lost my job over 12 years ago now. And nobody told me I was supposed to create a business plan. So I made up what I call a one-line business plan. And for 12 years, this one line has informed how I play in life and in business. Meet fun and interesting people. That's it. It's my business plan. Meet fun and interesting people. And he laughed and said, thank God you didn't have a business plan. Think where you'd be or where you wouldn't be if you had an official business plan. And that really speaks to a quote that I love. If you want to be successful in life and in business, watch what everyone else is doing and then do the opposite, because the majority is almost always wrong. It's Earl Nightingale. If you want to be successful, watch what everyone else is doing and do the opposite, because the majority is almost always wrong. I've created a business where I've done what I love to do. It's a very selfish way of creating a business. I do what inspires me, what energizes me, what excites me, and then I think about my clients second. And what happens with that is that I'm drawn to me my ideal clients, the people who really love and want to spend time with me, because I've created something for me. So my people show up. And when I say my people, they're the people like me, the people who face the challenges that I've faced, who have the dreams that I have in life. So creating a selfish business can be really fun. It's not selfish because I'm doing something to harm others. It's selfish because I'm doing what I would love to do, and then my people want to come along. 5 years ago, I realized I was tired of going to events where coaches lived in a world of scarcity, where they weren't creating what they wanted to create, where they weren't happy, where they were struggling. And I thought, well, I don't know what I want to create next, but I know I don't want to create a coach training school. Everyone and their mother seems to create a coach training school. And I run a couple of events a year that help coaches build their practice, so I don't want to spend more time doing that. What if I created a community of coaches who I love to spend time with? Coaches who've been leaders in the past and in the present. Coaches where leadership is their lifeblood. And I made up this idea called 4PC, a group of the top 4% of coaches on the planet. And we're now in our 4th year. I made it up. That's the thing about life and in business. Everything that you see out there that looks incredible that someone else has created, there was a day before they'd even thought of it. And then there was the day they made it up. I made this up. And now for 4 years, we've had this community of extraordinary coaches. Here's 4PC. If you want to be in a community of coaches and leaders who play a very high level game, who are up to something impossible, then you want to come and play in that world, because what looks impossible to you right now will suddenly seem so much more easy when you see what other people are up to. As a woman in 4PC who, my apprentice, Jen Gresham, who is raising $100 million to create an X Prize. There are people who do things that make what I'm up to, that looked impossible a day earlier, suddenly seems so much more possible. In 4PC, you get to meet 4 times a year, and we go to extraordinary places from my friend Teo's ranch called Wolf Connection to meeting up in Sedona or here in Santa Monica where I live. And I realized last year that 4PC is very time intensive. I'm going to spend a lot of time to be with us in 4PC. And there were a number of people who said they wanted to work with me. And money wasn't the issue, it was time. So I sat and thought, if your dream clients say they want to work with you, but there isn't a way for them to work with you yet, and yet they're the people that you love, do some reflection. And I realized, what if I created something that would have a way for a small group of people to be coached by me directly? This is something that's absolutely parallel to 4PC, but it's a group of only 10 really high-level leaders and coaches. A group of 10 people where I will coach them as a group 3 times a month, where you'll get to come twice a year to my home in Santa Monica as a small group, or phone in by Zoom if you can't travel twice a year, and join us for some high-level coaching in a small group. It's a mastermind. I've been in masterminds for years, and they've absolutely transformed my life and my business. And now I'm creating my own. So my mastermind is a group of 10 high-level leaders. They get coached by me in a small group. We have 2 private retreats. We have hot seat coaching, where you get to sit on the hot seat and I coach you in a way that's designed to put you at your very edge, have your heart trembling. It's called a hot seat for a reason. You begin to sweat on the hot seat and you get to witness the hot seat coaching. We have a boardroom where we act as your board of directors, challenge you. This is the power of peers, right? We have the critique lounge where you bring in your materials from your website to your brochures, and we look at them, and I have my team look at them and we review them to help create something powerfully that represents who you are in the world for your clients. And we have this small, powerful community. So this was my way of creating what I want next, for what I want to create next, for what I would love to have next. We began by speaking to a few of my favorite people, and 4 spots went immediately. And there are 6 spots left. And I wanted to share this because if 4PC is not right for you in this moment, particularly because it's very time intensive, or you're looking for a way to work with me directly, it doesn't cost $100,000 a year, that's an apprenticeship, but you get to be coached by me in a small group week after week for 10 months, a mastermind. John Wineland is one of my friends and buddies. We've been in our own mastermind together in a men's group for 8 years, challenging each other, pushing each other, stretching each other. John was a founder member of 4PC. He's in his 4th year of 4PC right now. He is one of the leaders in our public events at our intensives. Every time we run an intensive, he runs an evening session with Kendra around deep inner work. John has been with me in a small private salon that I ran a couple of years ago at the same time of 4PC. And the moment I said I'm running the mastermind, he said, I'm in. I'll be in 4PC and I'll be in your mastermind. If you're like John, if you're like me, if you're like Jennifer, because you play a big game, then there's 3 ways to work with me directly right now. You can be a one-on-one client for $100,000. We can have a private conversation if that's of interest. You can join 4PC in this community of 20 to 30 really high-level players where we meet every 90 days and stretch your thinking of what's possible. And you have 20 to 30 of the best coaches on the planet who are on your team. Or you can join my mastermind. There's a handful of spots left. We begin in a few weeks' time in March, and I'll see you here in my home in April, and then again later on in the year. I'd love to play. If you want to join me, then I'd love to see you. This is something I'm doing because it lights a fire in me. This is something I'm doing because it has my heart pound. And this is something I'm doing because it puts me again back at my very edge of what's possible. That's the game I like to play. If you do, then I'll speak to you soon.